This is the Brotherhood. Real talk, real growth, real connections for anyone ready to own their truth and heal their wounds. Whether you identify as a man, woman, or somewhere in between, this is a space to get honest, be vulnerable, and build strength together. Welcome back. I'm your host, Raul Peguero. And today I want to have a conversation with the men, but I also want to have a conversation with the women who are listening as well. Because if you ever loved a man, if you ever been raised by a man, if you are raising a man, or if you're simply trying to understand a man, then today's conversation is for you too. Because I don't believe we have a masculinity crisis. I believe we have an emotional maturity crisis. For generations, we've taught boys how to become providers before we've taught them how to become emotional mature men. We taught them how to work, how to compete, how to protect, how to provide. But very few of us were taught how to understand ourselves. We were told, man up, boys don't cry, figure it out, be strong. And while I don't believe those words were spoken with bad intentions, I do believe they had consequences. Because somewhere along the way, we confused survival with manhood. Today, I want to challenge that idea because I believe becoming a man has very little to do with suppressing yourself and everything to do with becoming conscious enough to know yourself. We were taught survival, not emotional maturity. I don't blame the men who came before us. They taught us what they knew. My parents loved me. The men in my life wanted me to succeed. But nobody sat me down and taught me what to do with rejection. Nobody taught me how to process grief. Nobody taught me how to communicate fear. Nobody taught me how to apologize without feeling weak. Nobody taught me how to sit with my shame instead of running from it. Growing up in the Bronx, I learned how to survive. I learned how to keep moving. I learned responsibility. I learned how to work. But emotional maturity, that wasn't a conversation. And I think a lot of men listening can relate to that. We inherited survival skills, not emotional skills. And those are not the same thing, right? So for me, growing up in the Bronx, right, in the South Bronx, as majority of people know it, growing up in New York, period, right, a Latino in the Bronx by, Dominican parents, my father did the best he could, right, with the knowledge that he knew, right? I live in a world right now where we're exposed to so many things that we can actually teach our kids a different way from what we were taught. And for me, it was, growing up for me was like, men have to always figure it out, right? We don't show emotions. We don't cry, right? Those things are for the weak. Vulnerability is weakness. Right? Don't ever let a woman see you like that. Don't ever let another man see you like that. Right? We grow up that we must compete and we must be the best at everything that we do. Now, being the best at everything that we do, it's great advice, but not when it causes you to lose yourself or to suppress how you feel. Right? This is where the misunderstanding happens. So I was raised to compete. Of course, especially growing up playing sports, I was raised to compete. I want to be the best at everything that I do is what I was taught. Be the best, believe in yourself. And that is great, right? But when you grow up and you've never learned emotional maturity, you've never learned to express yourself, you never learned to feel safe within your own skin to be able to be vulnerable. Okay? See, and I'll speak about this later when I talk about relationships. Yes, you have to be in a safe space to express yourself, and you also have to create a safe space. But if you haven't done that within yourself, it's impossible to do. For example, if you don't love yourself, what makes you think you can actually love someone else? Right? I saw a video the other day, I forgot his last name. His name is Lewis. He speaks about believing in yourself, right? And energy behind that travels, right? So for example, if you have doubt, okay, if you have self doubt, you know what happens with that? That energy of self doubt goes into everyone in your in your life. I'm talking about relationships. Okay, in those relationships, people are always going to be your biggest mirror. So if you have self doubt within yourself because it's how you feel, those people, those relationships are going to mirror it right back to you. So they're going to treat you the way you feel, right? That self doubt that you've created in yourself. So it's very important to understand that believing in yourself, that knowing you are the best, or you're doing your best, right? It's very important to understand how much that helps on a day-to-day basis. Because that self-doubt, man, that talking yourself out of things, not believing in you, etc., everyone can feel that energy, and you're just going to get that right back into yourself with every person that you encounter. Because people, and like I said, I'll talk about this in relationships, will always reflect to you how you feel about yourself. Always, right? The little boy never left. One of the biggest realizations I've ever had is this: the little boy inside of me has never disappeared. He grows older, that's all. It the little boy in me never felt safe, right? As an adult, I'm looking for safety because I never had it as a kid. And I'm not talking about physical safety. I'm not talking about having a place to live. I'm not talking about eating food. I'm not talking about having clothes on my back. That's not what I'm talking about. This is deeper. All of those things are surface level, right? This is the suppression as a child, things not to do because men don't do that, right? So he never felt safe. He'll spend his adult life looking for safety. Maybe in success, maybe in money, maybe in achievements, maybe in validation, maybe in relationships. All those things are outside of the person, right? For years, I thought I was reacting as an adult. Then I started doing the inner work, meditating, journaling, reading, reflecting. And I started noticing something. There were moments when I wasn't responding as the man I wanted to become. I was reacting as the little boy who still wanted to be understood. The little boy who wanted to feel chosen. The little boy who wanted to feel safe. That realization changed everything for me, right? So as you guys know, I've openly shared, my separations in my relationship, right? In 2023 was when I had my first experience awakening, right? From a separation. Okay. My wife asked for separation/divorce. And for me, I've never encountered something like that because I thought everything was okay, which is why communication is very important in relationships, especially romantic one, because there is no way that one person can read someone else's mind. There's no way that someone giving hints about something is actually communicating what they want. It's very important. I'm seeing that a lot nowadays where, men or women have unmet support, emotional support, unmet this, unmet that. And it comes from not communicating honestly. But there's deeper layers in that, right? They may not feel safe about it. They may not want to hurt the person. They may not want to say this. But at the end of the day, if those things are not communicated honestly, it doesn't get anywhere, right? So, for example, in 2023, separation, right? Obviously, and it's funny because I used to take the blame for it. I used to be like, oh, I wasn't paying attention. I was very disconnected, which are true. Now, this is not about being right or wrong, or this is not about pointing the finger at anybody, because at the end of the day, it will always reflect back to you, back to me. And later on down the line, the conversations come up like, was this actually communicated? when was it communicated? When was it said? Because like I said, hints are not, it's not communication. And no, there's no way that somebody can read someone else's mind, especially when one person in the relationship already feels a certain way. The other person has no clue of what's going on, right? So it's very important to communicate honestly, right? So the awakening for me was that a separation, right? An awakening can come to the person if they choose to see it that way. Breakup, losing someone, a family member, a friend, having an argument with a friend that you've been friends with since you were young, losing a job, right? All those things can arouse the awakening process for you to start your journey if you're open to it, because at the end of the day, you have free will, right? But here's what happens if you miss it in the moment, it will come back again. How? You wouldn't know until it happens, right? So for me, I remember when it first happened to me, I was doing the work to repair the relationship. I was doing the work for us. I was doing the work for my family. I was doing the work for Angie. I was doing the work for what we've built, what we've created, the image, the family, right? And that was backfiring, right? Because when you are going through your own awakening, your own spiritual awakening, it is a solo act. It is a understanding of self-awareness. Okay, this has nothing to do with your partner. This has nothing to do with your family, friends, work, job. None of that. So what ended up happening was when I finally decided to shift it to me, to myself, as soon as I did that, everything else fell in place. Because now I directed it to myself. I'm understanding my self-awareness, my self-reflection, my self-love, my self-worth. Who am I outside of a relationship? Who am I outside of my family? Who am I outside of the businesses that I run? All those things started to shift once I really focused on me. So now the meditation is about me instead of my family. Now the journaling is about me instead of repairing the relationship. Now the walks in the park, the working out, the things that I did on a day-to-day basis became about me and not anyone else. And of course, those things will be tested again and again and again. This is an ongoing process, right? So I wanted to share that with you guys before getting into the next part of this. So your relationships doesn't create the wound, it reveals it. I truly believe one of the greatest teachers a man will ever have is the relationship he's in. Not because your partner is there to fix you, and not because they're responsible for your healing, but because intimacy reveals parts of us we often can't see on our own. You think you're patient until you're misunderstood. You think you're secure until you feel someone pulling away. You can think you've healed until conflict introduces you to a version of yourself you thought no longer existed. Relationships don't create every wound. Many times they reveal the wounds that have been there for years, right? So, like I mentioned, for me, it was the relationship, right? Like I said, I've publicly shared it before, right? And there was a lot of moments of confusion, right? There was a lot of questioning. Did I mess up? Is this my fault? Because this is what starts to happen for men. When something doesn't go the right way because of how society has made men look or what they're supposed to do, the moment something crumbles, we automatically take it as in we are the ones to blame. And it's not necessarily that we need to blame someone else, but we take it upon ourselves. And what happens is because of our upbringing, because of what we believe about ourselves, right? We never ever get to see a different side of it. We put pressure on ourselves, shame, guilt. And I'm speaking from my experience. can't talk for everybody else, but I know it's going to resonate with majority of men because it's what happens. See, when things are going good, when things are going right, when there's money, bills are being paid, you're taking care of yourself, you're doing this, you're doing that, all the materialistic things. When all of those things are going great, you will never be hit with something that blindsides you, basically. But let it be tested. Lose a family member, lose a loved one, lose a friend, have a breakup, lose a job, and you'll see that you'll be tested. And again, it's up to you to take that moment to want to self-reflect and look at yourself and understand those materialistic things does not make you or identify who you are. We become those things in the experience that we forget who we are. And that happened to me, right? There were moments when I was confused explaining myself with actually listening. There were moments when I wanted to reinsure instead of responsibilities. When everything became uncertain, I had a choice. I could spend all my energy asking, why is this happening to me? Or I could ask a different questions. What is this experience revealing about me? And that's the question I ask now. With every experience that I have now, since I awakened back in 2023, end of 2023, beginning of 2024, one of the questions that I ask myself now when something comes up is, what is this experience revealing about me? See, the theme in my life has always been self-worth. That has always been the theme of my life. And as much as I've worked on that, there will be things that will come up to see if you're actually embodying that. And when you can ask yourself that question, it takes work to do that. That's not going to happen from one day to the other. Like, again, automatically, and it's not just men, women also. Why is this happening to me? Is what we always ask, which comes from blame, shame, and guilt, right? Instead, ask, what is this experience revealing about me, about myself? That question changed my life, like I said, right? Not because I blame myself for everything. And it's not what you're doing. See, blaming yourself comes from asking, why is this happening to me? You will never blame yourself when you ask, what is this experience revealing about me? There's no blame in that. There's no shame in that. And there's no guilt in that. All there is you being self-aware of yourself. What makes you believe these things? Okay, right? Because I stopped waiting for someone else to begin my healing. Whether the relationship lasts forever or not, no one can ever take away the man it helped me become, right? For me, and I will always say that, I am grateful for that separation, because it allowed me to see myself, to actually know myself, to actually want to dig deep, right? And I feel like if that would have never happened, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be the man I was always meant to be, or the man I'm remembering to be, right? So it's very important to switch those questions, right? Why is this happening to me? Like, ask yourself that. If you ask yourself, what is this experience revealing about me, instead of why is this happening to me, you will see how that will change everything for you, right? Stewardship is the new masculinity. I used to think leadership was about having the answers. Today, I believe leadership is about taking responsibility. Being a man isn't dominant. It's stewardship. Stewardship of your mind, your emotion, your body, your relationship, your word, your purpose, your integrity. Can you apologize? Can you tell the truth when it's uncomfortable? Can you regulate yourself before reacting? Can you keep your word? Can you stay present when life gets hard? That's strength. That's strength. Not because you're perfect, but because you're conscious, right? Sovereignty, a sovereign man, right? A leader. Okay. Now, I remember sharing a video not too long ago where it has to do with emotional maturity, understanding what you're grateful for, understanding how you see other people. For example, for me, way back, way back then, right? And we've seen it where men grow up and it's like you're used to seeing men piropeando, throwing puya, little things at women because we see women as a sexual thing, an object, instead of seeing women as human, right? Beauty, right? Getting to know that beauty, getting to know them, right? Not sexualizing women for what they wear. And we still see it, right? And I'm honest, I got to be honest, I used to be that person. I've done that. I've done it before. Every man has done it before. See, what I know, what I'm knowing now in this journey is how to respect myself and also respect everyone else, right? Not judging, not criticizing, not sexualizing, not saying that thing. She's mine. I own you. We own each other. No. No. I'm sorry to break that to you, but that's not the world we live in today. And that's not, for me and who I am becoming, that is not a man that I can say I respect, right? The old me definitely didn't respect the way I thought, the way I spoke, the way I saw things. Now, I'm grateful for that because obviously it has led me to be who I am today, right? But when you can understand your own power in respecting you, you respect everything else. I no longer look at a woman that I see on social media or whatever, and sexualize. What's the point of that? What is wrong with a woman wearing something she feels sexy in it? It's none of my business to tell that person you shouldn't wear that because it's exposing too much. Who am I to tell that woman that? Who am I to tell a man if he's wearing something and it's exposing too much? You get what I'm saying? Right? That's called self-respect. When you can self-respect you and control your mind and know who you are, you will never see another person on how they dress being something sexual or exposing too much or not respecting themselves. If you respect yourself, you will never think someone else doesn't respect themselves. The same way you treat yourself is the same way that you'll see the other person treating themselves as well. Right. So, I see a lot of things where men just feel like women are objects, that women are supposed to only be doing this because it's the godly thing to do, and because religion taught that, and because it's what society says. We don't live in that world, man. And to be honest, I feel like it's very freeing when you just understand and know you don't own anybody. You don't even own your children. You don't own no one. I feel like nowadays it should be about two people choosing themselves and creating a friendship, let's just say, right? A friendship opposed to a romantic relationship. Why I say that? Because I feel like when you can create a friendship with the person that you're in love with, right? Think of your friend. You wouldn't treat your friend like you own them. You wouldn't judge your friends in a certain way because you don't see them as a romantic couple. You see them as your friend, right? So why not treat your relationship that same way? Your romantic relationship, your partner, right? That same way as a friend, right? So because of all those experiences that I have and where I am in my life today, I created things for that. Right? This podcast came from that, sharing my voice, sharing my experiences, right? I've had so many people reach out to me, show support, show love. Thank you for this episode, man. Sometimes I know you don't make episodes like 3-4 times a month, but I'm waiting for the next one because I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear what you got to talk about. I want to hear your experiences, right? Right, my visions, right? I share all these things because I know there's people out there that can resonate with all of this, right? I'm going to share something with you guys here as well for the very first time. I've created the aligned way, and I'm going to get more into that in a few, but I've created the aligned way, and you guys are going to know what the aligned way is, right? So emotional maturity changes everything. When you become emotional mature, your relationships change, your friendships change, your leaderships change, your parenting changes, your purpose changes. The safest man in the room isn't always the loudest or the strongest. He is the one who creates safety for others because he's created it for himself. His present is true, trustworthy. He doesn't need to dominate a room to know who he is, right? So, like I was mentioning earlier, there is no way you can create a safe space for someone else if you haven't created it for yourself, right? And again, majority of the time we feel or think or believe because you have a roof over your head, you're making money, you're putting food on the table, you're putting clothes on the backs of your family, that is safety. It is not safety. We're talking about emotional safety. We're talking about, can your partner, can your friends, can your coworker, we're talking about relationships period in general. The biggest one is romantically, obviously, because it's the person you're with most of the time. Can the person you have a relationship with feel safe enough to share their emotions with? Can you be vulnerable as a man to your partner? Can you cry to your partner because you're feeling something you just want to express? See, you wouldn't be able to do those things if you haven't done them with yourself, if you haven't created with yourself. So you always got to look at yourself. And again, that's why relationships reveal these things. They reveal them. They're the biggest mirror because you haven't worked at it. You haven't healed from it. You haven't understand it yourself, right? So it's very important to know, create it for yourself so that others can reflect that back to you, right? So ask yourself that question, right? Can you go to your partner and be vulnerable? Can you go to your partner and share what you feel? And it doesn't matter if you start bawling and crying. Can you be honest with your partner? 100% honest with your partner, right? So finally, becoming a man reads your peace slowly, right? Allows you to flow in life, allows you to see a different perspective of the world you live in. The people, how you treat yourself is how you would treat others, and is how you will want others to treat you. Right? Very important to understand these things. Right? And I feel like I'm there, but there's more work to come, of course, right? So I always have a listener's question on every episode that I record. And this one is a little different because somebody asked me this, right? Somebody asked me in a video that I shared not too long ago on social media, Raul, what does an emotional mature man actually looks like on an everyday life, right? In a day to day. And I think that's a question every man eventually has to answer, not with his words, but with his life, right? When he's angry, he pauses before reacting. He understands that anger is often protecting a deeper emotion, and he chooses curiosity over impulse. When he's wrong, he owns it. No excuses, no blaming. His integrity matters more than his ego. When he's hurt, he communicates instead of shutting down or attacking. He has the courage to lead himself, be seen, right? When his partner is emotional, he doesn't immediately try to fix the situation. He listens first. He seeks understanding before solutions, because being present is often more powerful than being right. When he's successful, he stays humble. His identity isn't built on achievement. So success doesn't become his worth. When he fails, he reflects instead of collapsing into shame. He learns, adjusts, and keeps moving. When he's tempted, he chooses integrity over impulse because he knows discipline protects what matters most. When he's afraid, he admits the fear, but he doesn't let fear make it his decision. Courage isn't the absence of his fear, right? It's choosing what matters even while fear is present. When someone disagrees with him, he becomes curious instead of defensive. He doesn't need anyone to validate his perspective to feel secure. And when he loves someone, he doesn't love from emptiness. He loves from wholeness, not because he needs someone to complete him, but because he has something genuine to share. That's what emotional maturity looks like. Not perfection, presence, responsibility, awareness, and commitment to be a commitment to keep becoming. Right? So here's what I've created. The aligned way. If today's conversation resonated with you, I don't want this to be another podcast you listen to and then move on from it, right? So because information doesn't transform us, practice does. This is exactly why I created the aligned way. It's a place where conversations like this become something you actually live. Through daily reflection, guided practices, journaling, meditation, and teachings. The aligned way is designed to help you become more conscious of yourself, your emotions, your relationships, your purpose, and the patterns that have quietly been shaping your life. Because the goal isn't to become someone else. It's to remember who you are underneath the survival. If you're ready to continue this journey with me, I've placed the link on the description below, and I'd love to welcome you into the aligned way. Okay. If it feels good finally becoming a man, to have a drink without hiding emotions. I don't drink alcohol, so my drink will be a tea or coffee or a glass of water. To go and play without escaping. To dance and inspire others. To even look at women as your sister, not your pleasure, unless she's your person. And even then, not only pleasure. Okay. Again. Women are not an object. To let your inner child grow up instead of running and hiding inside my adult body while he chases me for safety. Again, I spoke about safety earlier. It's within you first before you can even experience it outside of you. To not take other people's issues personally, but care enough to understand them and stay. To give from the wealth that I am, and not I'm becoming. Not only the wealth that I have, to always do my best, to keep my word. And if I miss, take total responsibility and adjust from the evolved rhythm. To feel gratitude for shame, sadness, and guilt. So these emotions can heal instead of hide. And remember, we are the survivors of our own lives. No one will ever begin that work before we choose to begin it for ourselves. Thank you for tuning in with me today, and always remember, come for the truth, stay for the brotherhood. I finally made it this far and I'm not looking back.